Бидний хэлсэн ингэж их боломжгүй тийм. Жоохон үгүй яг бол.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arun Kumar Jha, Director General, National Productivity Council, India, that is NPO of India. I am here with Dr. Amarjargal Rinchinnyam, ex-Prime Minister, Mongolia. Sir, I welcome you to this show, which is organized by Asian Productivity Organization. And I welcome you to this show. Thank you very much for coming here and giving us time. Good morning, sir.
Good day, Arun. It's
Good day, sir.
Great to be here, to be invited.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, I will just take 2 minutes to give an introduction for you. So we are here with Dr. Amarjargal Rinchinnyam, ex-Prime Minister of Mongolia. He is currently Chairman, University of Finance and Economics, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. He is also Chairman of Amarjargal Foundation. He had a very illustrious career and he is a very learned politician from Mongolia and having a good footprint over the South Asian political system. He has been the Prime Minister for Mongolia for the 1999 to 2000. Just prior to that, he was External Relation Minister of Mongolia, and he has also been the Member of Parliament twice between 96-99 and 2004 to 2016. Very illustrious career, sir. And he has also authored one book, that is ABC of Economics 2001. He has also co-authored 2 books, that is Basic of Macroeconomics 2005 and Basic of Economics 1992. In addition to that, he has published many articles in different journals and different newspapers. He has really been a prolific writer, and we are really very, very happy to have him here with us. And I am also thankful to Asian Productivity Organization, especially to Secretary General Mr. Mokchan, who has arranged this kind of talk with a very famous and learned personality of Mongolia. Today we will be discussing for 1 hour about the MSME and the economic condition of the Mongolia and how the Mongolian MSME will have some kind of learning experience for us, for the Asian Productivity Organization and for the world. Since the participants and the viewers are from the different countries, including 21 countries member of Asian Productivity Organization. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Amarjargal, for joining us. I will just ask you to give your views about the Mongolian MSMEs, Mongolian economy, and how do you think the world will become better with your vision, your experience. So over to you, Mr. Amarjargal.
Well, thank you very much, Arun, for inviting me and having me at this online meeting. I'm very much appreciate activities of the SME Productivity Organization of Asia, and I want to greet all members of this huge, big, and very important family. Let me start with little briefing about Mongolia. I don't know how many people have an idea what is Mongolia and where it's located and what it's doing. It's a huge country. It's 1.5 million square kilometers. Actually, it's half India. And population is just 3 million, which is 3.3 million, which is by Asian standard, by Asian, if you compare with other Asian countries, it's quite small one, and we are a landlocked country. We are located between Russia, Russian Federation, and China, and we don't have any access to the sea, which by definition makes the structure of the economy and activities in business a little bit sophisticated. One also interesting number is we have a lot of cattle. It's more than 60 million cattle according to the statistical numbers. And I think it will be quite interesting for Asian people to see that it's a 3 million population and 60 million cattle. It should be quite impressive number for our viewers. Our economy is a very open economy. We have a GDP around 13 billion USA dollars, of which export about $7 billion. And mainly our export goes about 90% goes to the China. So you see this dependence on Chinese market is huge, and also import from China is about 34%. But anyway, it's quite open economy, Next important aspect of Mongolian economy, it's very much dependent on mining sector. And Mongolia is very rich in terms of mineral resources, copper, gold, uranium, coking coal, and so on and so on. So we very much concentrated on these sectors. And I would say that it's to a certain extent brings very big benefit for the economy, but on the other hand, all this richness of the natural resources creating a lot of problems, especially in terms of relations with the major players in the world economy and political implications. So next things which I want to mention, Mongolia in parliamentary democracy. And we started the process of transformation from the socialist, totally state-controlled, centralized planning system 30 years ago. We used to joke that Mongolia is the second socialist country in Asia and first socialist country in Asia and second socialist country in the world after Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, when the socialist system collapsed, Mongolia had no choice but to embrace the economic reform, political reform, and we are celebrating, if we can say, the 30 years of Mongolia's transition to the new economic system. And frankly speaking, I personally quite happy what we have done for last 30 years. Our economy expanded, and the role of private sector became a very important factor. Our international economic relations, political relations expanded hugely. So this is a brief what is Mongolia, and I think we will talk about the role of small medium enterprises more in detail after your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amarjargal, for a very nice introduction about your country, about your economy, about your population. And really, the 60 million cattle for 3 million population is very, very impressive. And the mine and the mining sector importance, but at the same time, dependence upon few countries for export and market is also need to be balanced.
Yes.
I just want to understand one thing that during this pandemic, how your country has been affected and how you have been able to help your MSME and especially in the mining sector because the social distancing need to be maintained during the pandemic. So we want to understand that.
Yes, well, pandemic, I think, affected all over the world. All countries were somehow affected by the pandemic, and the Mongolia not exclusion for this kind of things. And I would say that the Mongolian government made a very quick and very responsible decision regarding the closing down the borders. And I think this is provided opportunity to control pandemic in Mongolia. And we don't have a domestically, how it's called, people who with pandemics. We have just 300 cases, which all was imported from abroad. But the strict control on border, I think, provided opportunity for Mongolia to overcome and dealing with this big and terrible issue. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Mongolian economy very much open economy, and when you're closing down all your borders, it's directly affecting the domestic economic market and especially SMEs. And we do have some numbers are showing that our GDP is down by 10% for July. For August, we have a number around 9% down. So we do expect that at the end of the year, we will have a economic GDP around -2-3%, which is a quite significant number for Mongolia. In terms of SMEs and so on, I think all of these sectors was very much hit by a pandemic, and especially the sectors like the tourism, restaurants, and retail trade, I think was quite hurt by the pandemic activities. But in general, I want to tell you that response, very quick response from the government side, provided opportunity to control the pandemic, and in comparison with other countries, we're doing much better.
Really nice to hear this thing because many developing countries like us, we are down by more than 20%.
Yes.
And our hospitality sector and others have taken a big hit. And our MSME is in very, very bad condition.
Yes.
Although government has given good package, but it is still struggling hard. I just want to know that you have served as a prime minister, and what was your vision about developing the SME sector in Mongolia? And what is the current situation? Do you think that progress is good? And how do you think that other countries should learn from your experience of developing MSMEs?
Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, the issue for Mongolia was how to create a market system how to create private property institutions in Mongolia back in 30 years ago, because it was 100% state-owned properties, 100% state-owned entities, and people didn't have a private property, and we had a very little understanding what is the market economy, how it's functioning, what kind of institutions should be brought forward, and so on and so on. And the idea of creating the market economy based on private property was the most important issue. And I would say that this was very hard to implement task, but we do made it. And now I can report to you that about 80% of our economy produced by private sector. And of course, the role of SME in this regard is huge. We have a statistical number are showing that about 17% of our GDP produced by small, medium-sized enterprises, which is a huge progress, I would say.
Thank you very much. Actually, this is really a remarkable, achievement, creating market and transiting from state-owned to the private-owned.
Yes, you had the institutional memory about the market economy, how it's functioning and so on. But for Mongolia, after 70 years of communist regime, we totally lost this institutional memory of the market system. And it was really hard to start from the zero and start implementing of all these reform activities. And I hope you do understand that all reform activities very hard to sell to the people.
No, I can understand that this is really very, very hard. I just wanted to understand that India, we have been experiencing the struggle for MSME, despite the fact that this is an engine of growth, and this is the major source of employment. So in Mongolia and India, we have a similar experience, and other countries as well, that accessibility to credit, market and technology have always been the challenge of the SME sector.
Yes.
So what has been your experience, and what is your suggestion to overcome such kind of challenges?
Well, in Mongolia, the government and politicians do understand the importance of the SME and their role for the economy. But when you have problems with transition, you also need to look for the social side of this transformation. And in this regard, the role of small, medium-sized enterprises for dealing with these social problems like the poverty, unemployment, and so on, it was really very important issue for Mongolia. And I would say that the Mongolian government tried to deal with these problems and providing to certain legal environment, business environment, and of course the financial resources for SMEs and so on. And I do have some numbers here, and I should mention that the access to the finance and to the credits for the small, medium-sized enterprises are always important issue, and it's a huge demand for such kind of things. For example, between 2009 and 2018, small, medium-sized enterprises requested about 1.3 billion loans from banks and government-installed institutions. And they prepared about 26,000 projects for developing SMEs. And only 18% of this request was satisfied. So you see this if you apply for SME funding in Mongolia, only one of five are getting, around one of five getting SME loans, which is, of course, not so satisfactory numbers. But the issue related to the small, medium-sized enterprises financing is the most important issue. Hello, Kumar. Are you there? Go. Also, government of Mongolia passed a law regarding SME, and last year also government resolution regarding the developing the SME in Mongolia action plan. And according to this action plan, Mongolia's SME share in GDP should be increased up to 21% of GDP. Right now it's 17%, so it should be increased to 21%. And the share of the SME in export sector, which is right now it's very negligible, around 0.5% to 3 to 5%. So it's also a very huge task.
Thank you very much. Actually, the struggle of MSME is not yet over, and accessibility of finance has always been a problem everywhere.
Yeah.
Ajay, now I just want to understand your personal achievement. As a politician, it has been found that it is a rare combination of politician and academicians. How do you perform both the roles together? Because you have been a very prolific writer, you have been a very prominent politician, you have done good reforms, and you have had a very good understanding of the Mongolian economy, and you have done your great contribution for the country. So how do you perform all these roles at the same time?
Well, when you have just 3 million population, and out of the 3 million, almost 2/3 it's young people, you have to do everything. You have to be a business person and politician and entrepreneur and educator and whatever else left. You have to be able to do everything. But for me, the most important issue was this empowering the people during this last 30 years. And to empower the people, the most important issue is, of course, the education. And that's why I tried to popularize economic science, popularize productivity activities, popularize entrepreneurship in Mongolia, and tried to write certain popular books, textbooks for the students, and so on, and also delivering lectures. So idea of educating the population, idea of educating young people for the needs of the market economy, for the needs of democratic society, I think it was the most important challenge for me. And the overall idea was how to empower the Mongolian people to live and have a very decent life.
It is really very remarkable achievement, and your thoughts are so noble. I have seen that Mongolia has had a very good, expenditure on education and on health sector, which is perhaps not being done by other countries, because I have seen Mongolia has been spending around 4% of their GDP on health, and almost 4 to 5% on education. And that is why I have seen that literacy rate, life expectancy rate, IMR, MMR, these are very low in country of yours. And it is really remarkable. So I congratulate you on this kind of, standards.
Yeah.
Now I just want to know that what do you think the way forward for Mongolia and what the lesson for other countries?
Well, the biggest challenge for Mongolia is, of course, to sustain and expand the economic reform. And I would say that right now, all instruments of the market economic system here is in Mongolia. But the biggest challenge is how to fine-tune it, how to use it in a proper way that will give economic boost for Mongolia. This is the biggest problem. And in this regard, of course, I would mention about protecting the property right, contract laws, and I think this is the two areas which we should be very much concerned. Second challenge for Mongolia is, of course, the financial system. Right now, Mongolian financial system mainly composed by commercial banks, and it's about 90% of financial system, and remaining is stock exchange and so on. It's quite small numbers. So without proper financial system, without advanced financial system, you cannot reach what you want. And in this regard, developing the financial system and expanding its service to the whole economy, of course, major challenge. Third, I would say the most important issue for Mongolia is, of course, the dependence on mining sector. So how to overcome this dependence, and of course the issue related to the resource course and how to deal with this problem, I think the biggest challenge for Mongolia. And lastly, but not least issue is, of course, we do face it's after pandemic, the world will be totally different in terms of economic structure, in terms of consumption and so on. And I afraid that new normal will always include such kind of pandemics, any kind of pandemics which might come further. So again, the problem, readiness of the society, readiness of the government, readiness of mental and psychological readiness of business for such kind of things should be also taken into account. And in this regard, reliability of small, medium-sized enterprises and connectivity, I think will play a very important role. Of course, you know very well about the Industrial Revolution 4.0, Internet of Things, mobile, and 3D printing technology and so on. It's all this advancement in science and technology, of course, will shape the economic system of every country. And I do believe that Mongolia should be very much in line with such kind of development.
Thank you very much. Actually, you have hit the right point that after pandemic, the new normal situation will have to have different challenges, like
Yes.
Tourism and hospitality sector has to be compensated by something else. And what it could be, that can be only by having industry 4 readiness. We can overcome this kind of thing. And I have seen that in Mongolia you have taken a task of creating 30,000 jobs in the next 3 years, and you
Yes.
are also trying to increase the share of industry from the current 17% to 21%. That is really a very ambitious target, and very
Yes.
good target, I will say. So I think that what you have said correctly, that the financial system needs to be strengthened, and for any developing country that is a challenge. And how do we depend upon foreign countries and World Bank, IMF? All these things needs to be, balanced in the same manner, and it has to be, uh, they have to come to us, or we have to go to them for their help. I think APO, Asian Productivity Organization, is also doing its bit to enhance the productivity of our countries. Just another thing I just wanted to find out, that what is Mongolia's policy for the large industry? Because I know that your 57% of employment is coming from MSME sector, but for mining sector, and to utilize the mining resources, how do you think that Mongolia will be able to take advantage of value addition within the country by having a large enterprise, large factory?
Yes. Yes. Well, I have to say that connectivity is very important, not just within the country, but between the countries, between the economies. And I do believe that international cooperation, coordination in terms of macroeconomic policy and microeconomic policies are very important. And in this regard, I do believe that these countries together can overcome all these global problems. Without international cooperation, it's really hard to deal the modern global problems. Regarding the mining sector, of course, the mining sector are important for Mongolia, but it shouldn't be the last aim. I do believe that the mining sector will provide some opportunity in terms of financial resources and so on to channel it to other sectors, especially to the sectors like the education and health system. I personally have a very big dream that, for example, maybe 1/3 of the Mongolian economy in future will be, for example, health system, because Mongolia have a huge territory and natural nature is very much demanded by the I would say by foreigners, and it's very untouched and very natural nature, and using this advantage of Mongolia's nature with advancement in medical science and combination can create totally new economy, new sectors of the economy, very vibrant, very demanded sectors of the economy. And I think it's much better than digging the land. So advancement in technology and seeing opportunity for Mongolia can be very useful for Mongolian economies. I don't think mining sector is the most final destination for Mongolians economy. I see mining sector as a step for further development. Right now, of course, we want to have a more investment into the mining sector from abroad, foreign direct investment. We're providing huge business opportunities for the investors, and I know that some Indian companies are interested in cooperation in the mining sector in Mongolia, especially in coke and coal sectors, in uranium, and we also have oil, and with direct investment from India, we are building refinery in Mongolia. So we're trying to provide proper business environment for investors come to Mongolia in mining sector.
Thank you very much. You have mentioned about giving proper business environment to the foreign investment, and you have correctly said that in oil sector, in uranium, you are going to provide them good business opportunity. You have also talked about this, about that, giving proper, this industry 4. So in that connection, industry 4, that IT sector advancement is location neutral. So, and generally it has been found that a startup has a greater role to play in the IT sector. So how do you think that a startup can, leverage the expertise of Mongolians in giving IoT Industry 4 platform, which your MSME and enterprise can adopt? So how do you think that a startup is behaving in the Mongolian economy, and how Mongolian government is trying to give them a good platform?
Well, I totally agree with you that startups will play a very important role, and I do believe that's the future of Mongolian economy. If you look to the population structure of Mongolian economy, the startups will play a very important role, because these young people really have a totally different attitude and inspiration than my generation or elders' generation, and they want to be very much free in terms of their business activities and very much concentrating on startup business. And I'm quite optimistic regarding these activities in Mongolia. Mongolian government passed innovation law according to which the startup activities will get some funding, will have an opportunity to create techno parks and so on and so on. And the IT sector also booming in Mongolia. I would say that among the economic sectors, the IT sector is the most advanced in our economy. We have young people, especially Mongolian education system, not so bad, I would say, and especially Mongolians very good in mathematics. And these guys are creating a lot of IT companies, software companies, and IT-related companies, and they're doing quite well in domestic market, and many of them also was hired by other countries, like Japan is hiring a lot of Mongolian IT people, America is hiring a lot of Mongolian IT people. So I do believe that startups and IT sectors will play a very important role for Mongolia's future. And the government task is not to be a burden on them. It's just provide a platform for them to develop themselves and don't touch them. It's my position.
No, thank you very much. I've been seeing that Mongolia's share in agriculture, the GDP share from agriculture is only 13%.
Yes.
So that is remarkable, because it means the dependence upon agriculture is less. But but the service sector is almost 50%.
Yes.
So why I am telling you, because in India also we are in the similar situation, 15, 22 and 52%, something like that.
Yes.
So what happens that there is a limit to which service sector can grow. And it is always the industry sector which needs to be developed and needs to be nurtured, because it is the source of employment. And I have been finding that in Mongolia, the current unemployment rate is high. So what do you think, according to, because you have been a visionary leader and prime minister, that what kind of, strategy we should adapt so that there is a big push is given to manufacturing sector and industry sector in general.
Well, that the most advanced countries have a huge service sector. And I think Mongolia just in line with this process of creating the vibrant service sector, which I would say was very limited during the socialist period. And now it's composed about 40% of our GDP, which is a very remarkable achievement. On the other hand, the agricultural sector, especially the animal husbandry sector, was playing a huge role back in old economic system. But nowadays, the share of the agriculture, including the animal husbandry, it's about 12-30%. So it's a composition of the Mongolian economics structure is rapidly changing. The share of the agriculture sector and the related activities is going down, but the share of the service sector, of course, is growing very rapidly. And we do believe that the role of service sector will go up and up. I mentioned earlier about the health system, health sector, also education sector can play a very important role. Everything related to the online trading and the mobile delivery system and so on and so on. All the sectors also can play very important role. And one very interesting thing that franchise activities in Mongolia are quite remarkable. Franchise of the gym, for example, or fast food or convenience stores and so on, which brings the best international experience, best international technologies on such kind of sectors. And because the share of Mongolian economy is quite small, when you bring, for example, KFC to Mongolia, it's, by definition brings big increase in the share of the service sector. When you bring this CU to Mongolia, also its shares are growing, coffee shops, wine houses, and so on and so on. All these franchises are adding to the share of the service sector. And I think these sectors will play a very important role in bringing more employment and will help with to deal with the problems of poverty and unemployment.
Thank you very much. You are very correct that franchisee sector and retail sector is a employment generator.
Yes.
In fact, you have touched a very right point that education will play a very big role. Internet of Things, 3D printing, and the startup. It has been found in India as well as outside that a startup are generally concentrated in IT sector because they do not require big space, they do not require big investment, they require only human resources and
Yes.
brain, and technology comes from their own experience.
Yes.
But some of the resources which required to be deployed and value addition to take place in a longer term, I don't know whether I'm correct or not, but manufacturing sector is always said to be the cornerstone and foundation on which the economy can grow. So, what do you think that how Mongolia can kick start more manufacturing processes in the future, or you can say that how do you think that government is going to help manufacturing sector either in MSMEs or in the large enterprise?
We just next to China. it's world manufacturing empire. It's it's very hard to compete in terms of manufacturing activities, especially in terms of the cost and size with Chinese companies. And I met several Mongolian entrepreneurs who are saying me that we will develop concept of product, concept of custom style, and so on and so on. But manufacturing activities, especially in terms of light industry, will be concentrated. We will use opportunity of this huge Chinese market. So bringing the concept, new design, new ideas, I think this is very much suits for Mongolians, because this is an opportunity when you have a landlocked country to export these products very easily. You can export it through internet. You can export it through online activities. And considering the distance, I think this concept will have a more and more supporters further in Mongolia. But in terms of manufacturing activities, of course, we will give attention and giving attention to this manufacturing activities, government providing special treatment, tax treatment, financial treatment, and also government channeling the foreign aid and loans for manufacturing activities. For example, I was reading today in local newspaper that there is one company which is called Mongolias, and this company processing sheep wool for fertilizer. You know, for agriculture, fertilization is a very important issue, and you mainly use the chemicals like the kali, phosphor, or azotes, and so on and so on. But using the natural fertilizers like the sheep wool, it's totally new concept, and this is an innovation. This is access to the international market, and this is the international cooperation which all in combination give the production, manufacturing these fertilizers in Mongolia. And this company is quite new one, and they just made a contract with German companies to export these natural fertilizers to the German market. I think it's perfectly fits what Mongolia wants to have and what we're really looking for.
Thank you for this kind of information. Actually, Mongolia has a very vast land and pasture land.
Yes.
So, and with the large number of cattle, you can have different kind of innovative ideas for providing, natural fertilizer, natural things to outside world, which has become a craze in the new, period. Everybody wants organic thing. And
yes.
I think,
well, I would say that these last 30 years, first 10 years, it was really turmoil. It's really hard, very hard to overcome, because the economy literally collapsed. 1/3 of the economy was dependent on Soviet Union, and when Soviet Union collapsed, the whole economy collapsed. Socialist system collapsed, and whole economy collapsed. And first 10 years was really hard. Second 10 years, I would say, it was a time to build the necessary infrastructure for the economy, and this task also was not so easy one, but we did it. And last 10 years, especially last 5, 6, maybe 8 years, I personally can see how the entrepreneurial spirit of Mongolians are growing. They're looking for the best practice in the world. They're looking for best opportunities, and the Mongolians are very much keen to learn and bring the best in terms of techniques, in terms of technology into Mongolia. And you can see such kind of things, especially regarding the small, medium-sized enterprises.
Now, it is really good to hear the spirit of Mongolia and Mongolian people. You know, as we have been discussing that IT technology is location neutral and is area neutral.
Yes.
And in the recent past, all developing countries need to, leverage this IT technology sector for building their own economy and,
Yes.
giving employment.
Yes.
So, do you have any IT sector specific, policy in Mongolia, which other can follow or can learn?
Well, specifically, the government policy regarding IT sector was just support, and don't intervene. And that's why the penetration of the internet, penetration of the mobile phones, penetration of the mobile banking system, penetration of online service and so on, it's a huge number, huge growth. It's not by percentage, it's several times the sector are growing. And I would say that two key factors for such a kind of huge growth. One is the composition of the structure of the population. It's very young people, and the people in 20s and 30s they are very much adaptable for such kind of activities. And of course, the second thing, that's a very favorable business environment for them. Practically, we didn't have any restrictions on such kind of businesses.
Thank you very much. This is what called that invisible hand. If you do not interfere in the market, it is very good. Now, Honorable ex-Prime Minister, can you take some question from the viewers they have asked? So if you permit,
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The first question is, I think, from your own country. One Mr. Arya Amarjargal, he has asked.
Okay.
He's asking, what sector should foreign investor invest in Mongolia, or at least pay attention to? He's very specific.
Well, right now the foreign investors are very much interested in mining sector, and they have very little interest in other sectors of the economy. But I will recommend them to look for Mongolia's tourism sector, agricultural sector, especially the organic food processing activities. I think it will be very promising sector. I would recommend investment into the education and the health sectors of the Mongolian economy, and definitely into the IT sector in Mongolia.
Thank you. There is another question, and I do not know the destination, but I think he is from India only. Mr. Moktir Singh. Okay. He has asked that in the recent environment, what does Mongolia think of exporting to other countries?
Well, we're exporting. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very open economy, $7 billion export, and many of them, much of them goes to the China, much of them. So we want, of course, to have more customers around the world, and it's, in terms of logistics, it's a little bit hard to export the product of the mining sector. It's the only way to reach, for example, ocean through China. It's 1,000 kilometers. To reach ocean through Russia, it's 1,500 kilometers. So landlocked position are making, by definition, that these two markets will be our main customers of our mineral resources. But if you want to export, if you want to export to other countries, you have to think about the product, which is in terms of valuated is very high, but it should be relatively small in terms of size and so on. And I do see this opportunity in IT sectors, in knowledge sectors, in design sectors, in concept development sectors. So knowledge-based economy, I think, will be the key for Mongolia's further development. And of course, the service sector.
Thank you very much. Actually, that is the key to the, next gen economy.
Yes.
Knowledge-based
Yes.
economy. And in the last, as you had very, succinctly put that last 30 years, you have divided into 3 years. And the last 5 years, the way we have seen the technological development, which I have never seen in the last 4,000, 3,000, 5,000 years.
Yes, yes, yes.
And now this pandemic has, put us at that level that we have to go beyond, substantial product to knowledge product.
Yes, yes.
And that you are very right also saying that size which matters, because it's smaller size, high value addition.
Yes. By the way, I should mention about cooperation between Mongolia and India in IT sectors. And I think we do have a joint vocational training school here in Mongolia, where we have a joint program in IT training. And because you have a wonderful place called Bangalore, yeah? It's Indian Silicon Valley. So using this experience and sharing this experience, combining our effort, I think we can make a lot of good for regional economy and for the world economy.
Thank you. Actually, that is how my organization also, National Productivity Council, that is NPO of India, is also, banking upon the technological platform. And
Yes.
in the last 5 months of this, pandemic, we have been organizing 3 to 4 hours of webinar for the, e-learning or for any kind of development of the society and the economy. So
Yes.
This is how we are going to do it. Another question is one from Mr. Badblig Tagan, if I am pronouncing it correctly.
Yes.
He is asking what would be the immediate action for SME sustainability. I think what he's saying that immediately, what does MSME require? SME requires in this kind of pandemic, because most of them got closed and now they have to restart.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, according to the Mongolian classification, we have a 3-tier system regarding the SME. It's a micro, small, medium. So I think the policy toward all of them should be very much tailored. But in overall, I do believe that government intervention, especially in terms of providing financial support, are the most important issue. We do have a SME fund in Mongolia, which provides loan for the small medium enterprises. We do have a regulation according which 10% of government budget investment should be devoted for the needs of small, medium-sized enterprises. We have some regulation regarding the banking system, which are encouraged to provide a loan for small, medium-sized enterprises. We do have tax exemptions and relief for small, medium-sized enterprises. If you're creating more volume of product, if you're creating more jobs, they entitled to get some kind of support and favorable treatment from different sources. But right now, I would say that the most important issue, providing the financial opportunity, access to the financial sources are very important, because frankly speaking, what this SME is asking, it's not so big numbers. It's when we read the statistics, they average request for loan about 50 million Mongolian tukriks, which is roughly about $200,000, which is not so big number. And I think the government should be able to not discriminate SMEs and provide them with easy access to the financial system. I think this is the most important issue. And of course, training for SMEs and retraining, providing online training, how to run business, how to deal with the pandemic, how to organize work from home activities, and all that kind of some educational related activities, training related activities also should be provided very intensively by government.
Thank you very much. You have really covered each and everything, and we are really very, very thankful to you. Actually, the way you have described the Mongolian economy, the way, mining sector is coming up, how your export is dependent upon two countries who is your neighbor, Russia and China, and your the forward-looking concept of, Mongolian government to develop IT sector and to have knowledge-based economy. These are really remarkable, and I think that your foreign direct investment, because of your better business opportunity and environment, is attracting more of foreign direct investment, which will help the country in achieving, the target of employment, manufacturing capability, and increasing the, percentage share of industrial sector in the economy. Now, you have rightly said that the way KFC and other retail giants who have come to your country and they have given right to franchisee system, giving and of course pushing the employment. It has really been a wonderful experience talking to you, and I think all our countries who are members of APOs and who are here listening to you, and they will get a chance to understand that to develop economy, you have to have a foresight of utilizing and leveraging your current technology of Industry 4, IoT, 3D printing, and how to develop them.
Yes.
Of course,
When you look the international comparison in terms of doing business index, in terms of competitiveness, innovation, and so on, and so Mongolia's ranking not so bad. It's not catastrophic, I would say. but Mongols have such kind of mentality that we're not satisfied with current states. We always want to better. And of course it takes time. But we're a little bit in a hurry, a little bit impatient in this regard. And we want to do and to reach everything as quickly as possible. Maybe tomorrow should be finest economic system and so on. Of course, this kind of problems, on the one hand, you wish, you dream, and you're interested to have everything very quickly, but on the other hand, natural limitations and restrictions are the most challenging issue for Mongolia. And as I mentioned earlier, the Mongolian population are very highly educated, and it's really one of the biggest, I would say, heritage from socialism. And you know, Arun, it's if you look, for example, 10 people who have vocational and university training, 7 are women. 7 are women. So women's education are very high in Mongolia. And these people with such a high level of education, they just don't sit at home and doing just day-to-day activities. They want to be part of the whole community. They want to be part of the decision-making process. And I would say there's a political initiative or interest of Mongolian people are very high. They very actively involved in different NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They create different unions, a voice for good of the country, and they trying to spotlight different problems in our society. And this is the outcome of, I would say, education. And I do believe that this will be key for Mongolia's success. Regarding the activities of Mongolian productivity organizations, I was today reading their report, what they have done for last 5 years, and I was quite impressed because they organized so many different courses jointly with Asian productivity organizations, with member countries together. They organized international conferences here in Mongolia. They producing the monthly newspaper letter, for example, this one. I just want to show, and sharing the best examples and experience of SME activity. They are organizing training program for bringing the best experience of, for example, the Japanese experience just in time, or Deming's productivity courses, and so on and so on. So I'm quite impressed by activities of Mongolian productivity organizations, and I want to express my personal sincere appreciation to the Asian productivity organization for supporting us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, we in the National Productivity Council in India, we also want to revive our old relationship with the Mongolian Productivity Organization, because it is better to have more relationship and intense relationship. And in this era of technological advancement, while sitting in your own office, you can have a exchange of views and exchange of knowledge. So yes, thank you very much for such a wonderful experience of talking with you and sharing your experience, your vision, your future expectation from the different countries, including Mongolia, has been wonderful. And on behalf of National Productivity Council India, and we thank our host Asian Productivity Organization for arranging this interactive talk, and I'm sure that viewer must have had a good takeaway from today's interactive talk and experience which you have shared with us. So thank you very much, Dr. Amarjargal Rinchinnyam. Thank you so much for giving us time and sharing your vast experience with us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Arun. I really liked our conversation, and I do hope that the National Productivity Council in India will be the most flagship of the modern Indian economy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Over to you,